So Maundy Thursday, this evening, began in a familiar and comfortable way, with friends gathered around a table for a meal together with Jesus. It would end in darkness, betrayal, and loss. It was a threshold time, a time when what had been familiar and predictable would fade, and new experiences would mark them for the rest of their lives. Jesus, the change agent, would pull them in with a gaze of love and new behaviors. The common foods of bread and wine, forever transformed by his words, commanding that they repeat the servant posture of washing feet. The fracture of time spent in prayer, changed by betrayal and agents of political power. What was familiar was undone. And this night is a threshold of stepping into the darkness, of not knowing what was next. It was unsettling, and it would change them forever. Could they trust in God now? Poets and painters, musicians and theologians will mark this night as a pivotal moment, a hinge time that opened doors that no one expected. They were living on the border of the holy, a description used by Bill Countryman in his book of that title. The evening's thresholds would leave them vulnerable, frightened, feeling powerless as the events unfolded. God would accompany them in the darkness in ways it will take some time to understand. They would remember these moments over and over again, searching for the meaning of it all. What were the signs of God's purpose, of God's intention to meet them in these soul-bridging times? And how can all of this night, all of these events be described succinctly? What few words would you use if someone asked you, "Tell me about Maundy Thursday"? We are all the keepers of this story. What words would you use to tell of this night? A priest friend of mine in Baltimore was asked to describe his own life in 6 words as he entered a group of clergy who were committed to a new ministry. The exercise gave everyone pause, but it proved quite helpful and enlightening. An imagined narrative could be fashioned from just these 6 carefully chosen words. This pattern emerged, and you can find it in several New York Times bestseller books. It began with Larry Smith and his Smith magazine. The most famous 6-word example is attributed to Ernest Hemingway. baby shoes for sale, never worn. The attribution is disputed because Hemingway would have only been 7 years old at the time. But we can easily imagine why an author who wrote sparingly and beautifully would seem a likely source. Intrigued by that exercise, I went online and I found a world of insight in 6 words, especially this one. Preachers are always wordy. Cut some. So I did. So here are a few 6-word memoirs from tonight to describe Maundy Thursday. They were inspired by lingering over the texts. You take the lowest place, kneeling. Not quite what I was expecting. Ready or not, time for change. Let me cradle your 2 feet. Old ways don't open new doors. On your knees, you see everything. Tomorrow, I leave, he said again. Know that you are my disciples. You also should love one another. Imagine brevity at the table from Jesus, from the disciples. I lingered again over the text, as after the meal, they went into the garden for prayer, and then the arrest and the stripping away of all that had been. Fewer words, more action. Solitary and anguished prayer before the world will have its way with him. What's the purpose in all this? I thought you were my brother. Should have known the end result. Woke up too late to help. Crazy does not make me wrong. Enter the mystery of what's next. Paramedics finished the text. Love you. I leave you tonight with Jesus' own 6-word memoir. We have carried it for hundreds of years. Do this in remembrance of me.